Welcome to Phoenix and Flame, my podcast about pushing through and transforming even when you feel like a pile of ash. I'm Dana Skaggs, a psychotherapist known as the Queen of Boundaries. If you are new to Phoenix and Flame, please subscribe so you will be notified of new episodes. Visit Dana Skaggs, DanaSkaggs.com for a free quiz to discover how boundaries are impacting your life. This podcast is not intended as psychotherapy. If you are in crisis, please call 911 or contact your local crisis hotline. Welcome, friends, to Phoenix and Flame. I am so thrilled with the guest that we have today. Our guest's name is Darlene Greene. Now, we're going to be doing a lot of talking with Darlene because she is in a unique situation where she's providing care for her husband, he's around 67. We'll ask Darlene about that here in just a minute. He was diagnosed with early Alzheimer's 3 years ago and began a very steep decline. And Darlene has had to engage in a daily battle to try to find her peace, her patience, and joy in the midst of a lot of grief. It's just such a hard journey with lots of feelings and thoughts and all kinds of things going on. Darlene, thank you so much for joining us on Phoenix and Flame.
Thank you, Dana. It's an honor to be a guest on your amazing podcast. I have listened to over 10 of your podcasts. They're all so invaluable, and I often feel like you're just talking to me. Like, is she just out there doing a podcast for me today?
That's
I mean,
awesome.
you had the narcissist one. I'm like, yeah, I have two exes that were narcissists. You had the boundary one. I'm like, oh, yes, that's, of course, having dealt with narcissists, you have to learn about boundaries, right?
Yes.
They're all just fabulous, and they're like a master class. So thank you for all of the beautiful work that you're doing out there.
Thank you very much. And Darlene and I, we were talking earlier, we were saying that the reason why I created this podcast, is because as a psychotherapist, I've heard so many people say, I feel so alone. And I would know they're not, but we don't really as a whole and as in general talk about these things out loud. We're the walking wounded, and I would see my patients come into my office, and I knew that when they walked outside and walked down the sidewalk, they were going to look like $1,000,000 with their sunglasses on and their scarf whipped around and their great clothes and their great shoes. And if somebody were to see them, they would think, man, that person's got it together. And they would not know that that person was just in my office collapsing in a sobbing fit over divorce issues, over family dynamics, over things going on at work that they don't have any control over. We are all of us are walking wounded. All of us. I challenge you to find one person on this freaking planet that is not wounded in some kind of way. And so I wanted to create this podcast so that we would have this space to be very transparent, and it would be a safe space where we could be honest and say, you know what? This is exactly what I feel like. This is exactly what I've been through, and I'm expecting people to do this or that, and that may happen. And we can pull together as a group, as a collective, and think, you know what? We are not alone. We are together. And that's why I love people like you, Darlene, who are willing to come on my podcast and share, your journey with my listeners, because for all we know, there may be a listener out there right now who might be taking a walk or might be folding laundry or might be in the car, and they're listening to this podcast, and they might be going through the exact thing that you're getting ready to explain. So let's go ahead and create some space for you to just start wherever you would like, and we'll just kind of weave in and out and kind of learn what it has been like for you.
All right. Well, thank you, Dana. And you're so right. And it really keeps getting close to people, I think, and having them share that inner part of them for people to know how wounded so many are. I guess if it were to start, I would start a little bit back, even farther than my husband's Alzheimer's, and just say that I didn't marry very well the first two times. Narcissists, both of them, very painful. It came out of those two relationships, yeah, both emotionally and physically abusive, and really with PTSD through the court trauma and trying to protect my daughters. Um, I learned a lot in that process. I did a lot of reading, like how could I do this, right? The narcissists are so sneaky and
Mm.
perverse and so charming. So I did a lot of work. I mean, and I went through a lot of therapy. There were times when I was in 2 therapy sessions a week, to just kind of hold it together because I didn't want it pouring over on my children.
Mhm.
And I came out with 4 autoimmune disorders, really, from thyroid to, um, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, POTS, right? All of these. And I recognized that my health was going to be even more at risk. I'm much higher risk for cancer and other things when your autoimmune is compromised. And I read a great book. You are so good at referencing super good books and commenting on them. I just want to throw this one out. It's called Molecules of Emotion by Candace Pert. Have you read that one,
No, I
Payman?
have not. I'm getting ready to write it down right
It
now.
is. I was in an emergency room with my ex at the time, and I was reading a really good book. And this doctor, I was telling him how, my ex had narcissistic personality disorder and obsessive compulsive personality disorder, and we were going through divorce. And I said, I have fibromyalgia, like I'm not going to survive this. He goes, well, of course you have fibromyalgia. He's like, how could you not? You're in a traumatic relationship. You need to read this book. And so I did read that book, and it's something that still I'm thinking of today because I understand now how the traumas we're experiencing, the stress that we're experiencing, especially the chronic stress that we're experiencing, will take us down if you're not careful. Like, will just destroy our health, right? And as a result, I'm doing right now everything I can to try to stay healthy. And we can talk about that in a minute. But back to I get out of those 2 relationships and I am never going to date again. I clearly had terrible tension and then, I'm going to have my parents pick someone out or something because this is not working. Anyway, and I am befriended by my current husband, Jim. And there's not a better soul on the planet. He is an angel, and if he was a gift from God for all of the trauma that I went through. He is just such a sweetheart. And I mean, I would talk to his best friends and say, okay, what am I missing? Like, tell me the truth here. I can't go through this again. I have little kids. You have to share with me where it's just that
Yeah.
they're like, I really can't say, I don't know. Anyway, and he continues to surprise me with even just the grace with which he is handling this diagnosis and the client. Um, so imagine, we have this beautiful marriage. And actually, I think, one of the best, actually the best marriage of anyone I have ever known. We have been happy, so happy always, just had this great friendship, great marriage, great everything. And so when his memory started failing and we got the early Alzheimer's diagnosis, a few years ago, it was pretty devastating. And initially I was in the I don't believe you, you know.
Mhm.
I don't believe you. It's something else. It can't be that, right? And it's mold. And mold can look like dementia. Let's make sure we're clearing mold out because he didn't have mold. And let's look at all these other alternatives. Let's go to Mexico 4 times and get IV stem cells and let's fight this thing. And we'll do a hyperbaric chamber and we'll start the Dr. Bredesen protocol where you throw out alcohol and soda and white sugar and white flour and anything that's not organic and nothing genetically modified and only olive oil, extra virgin olive oil and avocado oil and get the best of foods, right? And yet his decline, he declined in 2 years, what would normally be a 13-year progression.
Whoa.
Super fast. I
Oh
mean,
my
the
goodness.
chief of the neurology department at Manners Alzheimer, and Barrow's Neurological Center said, "Wow, like this is fast." And it's partly because he's young, so it's more aggressive, and it's partly because it's he has the gene type from both parents, KK4-4, but and I think honestly, it's partly because of a particular myasthenia. There are several doctors who said it's like turbo Alzheimer's as a result of that. So all of those things combined to just have this huge decline to the point where now he's cognitively age 5. And he cannot put a glass of ice water together without a bias. He cannot take this to the blue recycling bin without you following him and making sure, because it's going to be raw. He can't bring the garbage tin in without specific guidance and you watching him. He can't pack it in a shirt and he has not knowing what to do with it. Or toothpaste, he'll grab shaving cream or stick it in mouse or like just even pills. Take these pills, he'll hold them in his hands and he'll not know what to do with it. Or he'll stick them into his cup, or he'll stick them in a straw, or he'll put them in his mouth and I'll spin them out. So, there are things that are here we are, and my role has completely transitioned to being mom. Right, mom of child now, which is so complex and not something I really ever expected, because you're married, you have this great sex life, you have all these things, and now you're dealing with a 5-year-old, and sometimes you make 76 or 67-year-old comments like, "You look really good," or just some of the things that you've encouraged people to
Yeah.
say these things, right?
Yeah.
And yet now it feels so raw. So there's a lot of complexity to the relationship right now. But I must say that in my search, and I did search because I have been searching. I've been sort of a hobbyist in the medical health field and really the alternative medical health field. And I'm not particularly fond of any kind of pharmaceutical drugs. I think that we play a little bit of like God when we do pharmaceutical drugs. They're usually masking symptoms. They're never really getting to the root cause. That to suffice it to say, I did try darn near everything. And we have an infrared sauna. We had ozone dark ether at my house. We do hydrogen water, things people have never even heard of, right? So somewhere along the way, I had a friend say, "I know you've met and explored IV stem cells, which, by the way, we had no noticeable effect or improvement from, and they were $10,000 an IV. We did it 4 times for both of us. So, money is just, even the hyperbaric chamber is just like $150 an hour, and you're doing it 3 times a week for a month, right? The expense of this is huge. But at the time, I'm thinking, what wouldn't I spend?
Yeah.
Wouldn't I would mortgage the house if it would save his life and turn this around, right? So we get to this stage, and my friend says, you know, I have a technology that activates your own stem cells that has changed our family's life. I recommend you try it. And I will admit, Dina, at the time, I was incredibly skeptical. And I also was incredibly desperate. So I
Mhm.
was like,
Yeah.
sure, why
Me
not? Money
yeah,
back
me too.
guarantee, not very expensive, but all like $99 for a month. I'm like, sure, try that. So imagine, we were at a point in time at that point a year ago where Jim was not even himself anymore. He was really like a zombie. He was sleeping the day away, so sleeping like 3.5 hours a day. I'd go up and check, like, are we breathing, or did you die in the, and that's a long nap, especially when you're already going to bed early and you're getting up late. So he was sleeping and he was no longer really engaging in conversation. I think it was just too challenging for him. And his personality changed. He was no longer even trying to be funny. And his personality is to be funny and make people laugh. So it was really rough. And he would ask me the same questions over and over again, like 7 times in 2 minutes. 7 times. You're trying to be patient.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
trying to be patient and act like the seventh time is the first time and that you haven't heard the 6 previous times. But it's enough to make you want to call the walls, right? At the same time that he is now in this location, I am I was sort of doing okay, and then I missed the last few steps of our staircase and broke my foot and sprained my ankle, and I completely tore a ligament and the other one 90%. And I'm now like the fifth month of pain. They've got me study for surgery, but I have been in pain for 5 months. And all of my coping mechanisms, well, not all of them, but a lot of my coping mechanisms, right? My pickleball several times a week, my walks around the neighborhood, my just getting out of the house. I'm sort of stuck in this chair, foot up, crutches, not getting out and about or doing the things that really helped me through this. So I was depressed. And I mean, I wanted to cry every single day. Um, it was just awful. And I was really struggling to be a good care provider because I was so frustrated and the anxiety was high, the depression was high, the energy level was low, and I was in pain. So it was just a bad situation. So in comes my friend who says, try this. And I say, sure. What do I
Yeah.
have to lose?
Yeah. Right.
And in the first week, for the first day, he did not. He stayed awake all day. And all of a sudden, he is chattier than he has been in years. It was like a dam broke, and 2 years worth of stuff was coming out. It was the most amazing thing. He was with it. His responses were appropriate. He didn't have the right words most of the time. And he wasn't asking me the same question over and over again in a short time. But the best part was he was back to his personality. He was funny again. He was flirty again. Him was his original style. He doubled his actually he had been at I think we'd gotten to 15 minutes of deep sleep when we got into I averaged 25 minutes of deep sleep in the second week of patching. And then other good things happened for him. He got regained the ability to whistle and drum, and his blood pressure dropped 37 points. He also, at the 5-month mark, regained his sense of smell, which he lost 15 years ago. So that's an early warning indicator for Alzheimer's. In case people don't know it,
I had no
they
idea.
must not related to viruses, so to speak, then had pandemic viruses. But if you lose your sense of smell, it can be an early warning indicator, and you want to go get it checked out. So all that to say, that was Jim's experience, and then you have my experience. So I was, we talked about, the 4 autoimmune. I had regular headaches, I had rosacea, dry skin, wasn't able to lose weight, hormones weren't balanced, stress eating, emotional eating
Mhm.
because, depressed,
Mhm.
body aches from fibromyalgia and such. The first thing I experienced right away was the pain relief of the pain relief patches. This makes no sense, and yet this took me out of pain better than Vicodin, better than Percocet, better than anything, and it happens within a minute, like whoosh, out of pain, and it was so remarkable that I actually didn't believe it. I thought this just must be the day that my pain goes away. The 5-month part, like, and the thing, you take the patches off after 12 hours, and within 15 minutes, my ankle's throbbing all over again. And I was like, wow, okay, definitely the patches. Um, but over the next year, like I was prescribed in medicine for my POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia, that causes you to pass out
Mhm.
because you don't get enough blood to the brain. So what I was prescribed fluorocortisol, which increases your blood pressure. Well, that sounds like a very bad idea to me. I don't know about you, but a drug to increase your blood pressure on a daily basis just does not sound like a good approach. But that's where I was, or I would black out and knock myself in my head. I had hit my head a couple times. This is not a good place. So, but I haven't had to take that medicine in a year. I have been headache free for a year, so I didn't go anywhere without my migraine medicine because I could end up in a hospital if I didn't get it really early.
Mhm.
It would go to full blown migraine, and I was unfunctional. So my headache stopped. My rosacea cleared after about 3 months. My skin got really soft. I lost weight effortlessly. Well, partly because I was no longer emotional eating. My hunger and sugar cravings went away. That was life changing for me. And as a therapist, I know you'll understand this, but I have white knuckled my way through diet my whole life because I'm a sugar addict. I'm a salt addict, and I just would like think about it but not do it. So it was just hard. It was always taking a discipline, right? You only have so much discipline in a day, but it was being spent on not eating all of that, especially in the last 3 or 4 years. We just started having it in the house, but that didn't keep me from being tempted by commercials or out and about. So to have that just dissipate entirely, I'm like, oh, this must be what like normal people feel like. Like when you're not just craving sugar and salt all the time. So, you get satiated and you stop eating. You don't just keep going. You don't just stand in front of the refrigerator and say, I know I'm not really hungry, but I want something. All of that just sort of stopped. And I was waking up before my alarm clock. I was going I was exercising. I didn't want to exercise, but I all of a sudden had the energy to exercise. And I'll tell you the funniest thing. In that first week, I was in the kitchen cooking up a stir. And I hated cooking before. And I'm gonna be if I was in the kitchen thinking, I hated cooking so much. So much. I don't know. I didn't have the energy before. It was end of day, figuring out what to eat, all of the, having to eat only healthy stuff, which can't come prepared. Everything's got add oils or sugars or something like that. So you kind of do it from scratch. And I hated it. But all of a sudden I have all this energy and I felt amazing. And I cooked more in that week
But
than I did in a year.
I'm gonna interrupt you here because I'm gonna ask some questions because I'm imagining if I were listening to this podcast, because I'm kind of a skeptical kind of person, and I'm like, no matter who I'm listening to, whether it's a sermon or whether it's a
Yeah.
lecture or whatever, I'm that
Yes.
person that's going, "Mhm, sure."
I
So,
believe you.
at this point, listening to you describe all this, it's like I expect you to start saying, you know, bald men are growing their hair
They
back,
are.
and
Actually, that's true.
I
Bald men
mean,
are growing their hair. That's so true.
so my so
So true.
my next question is gonna be, if that's the case, this seems like the pill that fixes all ills for every person, then it should be like on if I was a listener, I'd be thinking, "Well,
Yeah.
why doesn't everybody know about this? If it's this amazing, if it cures all these things and makes everything all wonderful, then why isn't it on like national news? Why doesn't everyone in America know all about this and this kind of thing? Because it's sort of like just speak to the skeptic, speak to the person that's
Sure.
going, I
Sure.
want to believe all this stuff, but it sounds way too good to be true. So either she's not representing it correctly or something's off about this. So speak to that person, speak to that listener.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying you would be surprised by the people that are wearing these patches that you don't even know are wearing them. So Serena Williams, David Beckham, Michael Phelps, Tom Brady, the Kansas City Chiefs, over 300 Olympic athletes in the 2008 Olympics. The technology has been around 20 years. The patch that is activating your stem cells and elevating your own stem cells has been around 4 years. And there are doctors and anesthesiologists. There's an anesthesiologist that's been a doctor for 4 years that says this is the most significant medical breakthrough in my lifetime. But to answer your question around why, well, from this is Darlene's perspective, not a company perspective, right? And we have to be careful to say and make the statement that, our products are not intended to cure, treat, diagnose, or prevent disease because
Mhm.
we're just a wellness product, right? We are not a medicine. There is no medicine, it's light therapy. There are people that start these patches and they no longer need their thyroid medicine. They no longer need blood pressure medicine. They no longer need cholesterol medicine. They actually no longer have cancer. They no longer have osteoporosis. They no longer have whatever. Your stem cells made you. Your body has an innate wisdom and it knows how to heal you. But when you're 30, half of your stem cells are dormant. And when you're 60, they're almost all dormant.
Mm.
And so by waking them up and saying, hey, get back to work, you got a job to do, they go immediately where the inflammation is. And they start to tackle that first. And they start to do a lot of amazing things that are proven, by the way, in double-blind placebo-controlled studies. We have 90 clinical studies. And I would say that the reason it's not more out there is partly because of it's not a GNC sort of type of model. And partly because I think when you look at who owns the media or government or big pharma, those three are sort of in band together. And this is not a technology that they want out there advertised because it undermines the foundation of their recurring business model. I'm going to give you a drug. There's going to be side effects, but we have another drug for that. And
Mhm.
this drug doesn't really get to the root cause of it. It just masks the problem so you feel better. Why would you take a blood pressure medicine when you can do something to help your body reduce its blood pressure naturally and never need a blood pressure medicine or drop your A1C forever. And no, people are having their insulin levels, and I get it. I was in that skeptical place, but people can actually Google the copper peptide GHKCU. This is something I had never heard of before, but this copper peptide has had 50 years of research, and you can Google it in PubMed. And when you do, and there are people that actually were getting or have been getting GHQCU injections. Peptides are kind of the big rage right now, right? That's why they're taking them off the market, Dana. They're literally harder and harder to find, even in naturopath's offices, because they work. But this copper peptide has been proven to increase the activity of stem cells. They're just we have them, they're just dormant, so it wakes them up. It produces growth factors. It improves brain and nerves, upregulating and downregulating genes. It improves heart health. I mean, there's a study that was done on our patch. Every 6 weeks you wear this patch, your cardiovascular system becomes 8 weeks younger. And there are studies with EEGs on the brain that show an amazing amount of supporting cell and nerve regeneration, improving the nervous system, lowering anxiety, decreasing brain inflammation, and improving memory, focus, and cognition, including PTSD and ADHD. People no longer knew their ADHD medicine. And I'm not saying all people, and I'm not saying in a specific amount of time, because every person is different, and where those stem cells go and what they do first for you is what they're going to do first for you, and nobody knows what that's going to be for each individual, and I can't say what it's going to do for each individual, and that's why we can't make any promises. But we can say this: when you have GHKCU elevated in your body, it resets programmed cell death of cancer cells, and it doesn't affect healthy cells, and it repairs damaged DNA, and it resets 84 genes to protect against cancer.
Okay,
It
I'm gonna
does.
I'm gonna I'm gonna time you out
Okay.
right here because
All
otherwise
right.
we're gonna start sounding like a commercial, which I don't want
No,
my
no.
podcast to sound like a commercial. So in transparency, I you say our patch. So when you started telling us your story, it was a patch that you started taking and
That's
and your
right.
husband started taking and you like because you were struggling so much with his significant decline and your significant the depression and everything and so then you started taking this patch and you noticed changes in yourself and in your husband. So, how did it go from a patch you were taking to now you're saying our patch? What does that
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. So when I first started and I was really skeptical and I saw the effects of it for myself, um, I was immediately saying, "Hey, mom, dad, you need some bone density increment. You need some more stability. Sis, you've had microscopic colitis for 6 years, knocked it out in three, right?" These people around me, they're just my inner circle. But I was like, "You need to try this." And in the middle of that, I'm also diving into research. Let me read these 9 clinical studies and sharing with a friend that's got this illness or a friend that's got that illness, and watching these amazing benefits to other people. Initially I was like, okay, it's working for my husband and me, but we're two, right?
Yeah.
We're two people. But when you start to see it happen for the friends and family around you, and you read the studies and you listen to testimonials, it became something that I thought, it where was this 3 years ago when I needed it?
Uh-huh.
Why, if I would have started this 3 or 4 years ago when my husband first started the decline, we wouldn't be where we are today. And from the moment that I actually purchased my first set of patches, you can purchase wholesale, right, and save money. And so, with that wholesale kit came sort of a brand partnership, so that I could have mom and dad buy patches or my sister buy patches, uh, and and that could help me pay for my patches. But it's really never been about anything other than health and wellness and helping other people get out of pain and improve and optimize their health. And it's almost like criminal to have something this powerful and this effective and not let people know about it. I'm mad that it's not in the national news or on the front page of the newspaper or on the front page of the Time. It ought to be. It ought to be. And it's frustrating to me that even things like, NAC which was so super good to help prevent illness and viruses, you know, swept off the market at the beginning of a pandemic, initially completely taken out of distribution because it was competing with big pharma's directive around, what they wanted you to do. And so this kind of thing is kind of hushed, and that has fueled a fire for me. More than anything, though, this is my silver lining, where my ability to steer others and to help others with their help. And I get unbelievable testimonials every day. I get a text, I get something from someone that says, "Oh my gosh, all these things," right? And I won't do that because it'll sound commercial like, but all these things. And I get such joy from that in the midst of what is incredibly challenging. This is, you and I talked before the show started about the fact that I'm not the phoenix yet, right? I'm in the middle of the ashes. I am dealing as a provider while working in a situation with a husband that is 5, and I'm still, I'm doing all the things I know to do, but that you would tell me to do as a therapist. You would say, meditate, check, exercise, check, get good sleep, check, eat healthy, check. Get into social groups and get support. Yes. Get therapy. Yes. Do group support. Yes. I'm doing everything I know to
Mm.
do, and yet I'm still having days after days where I feel like there's an elephant on my chest and I can't breathe. And I'm thinking, okay, what else can I do? What is possible? And maybe I need to change my circumstances. And my therapist said to me, which was really hard for me to hear, Darlene, if you're talking about putting Jim in a place where they'll take care of him when he's at a particular point in time, but maybe you need to look at when you actually need this to happen for your own health and wellness. And I initially was like, oh my gosh, that's so selfish. That's just wrong. Like, I'm, to let do his part, and this is my job, and all of that. And that's where some of your podcasts have even spoken to me around, you're putting your own oxygen mask on first. And I literally will take myself down into the ground, and the molecules of emotion, but coming back to that and recognizing that this could kill me. I had 4 doctors tell me the care provider will go first. So hold it together and take care of yourself through that, which is why I'm trying all these things, and
Well,
why I think it helps.
and I really love the fact that you're bringing up, the all the effect of the patches because you were trying to eliminate as much as you could. You were trying to help with as much as you could because there's these other things that you cannot do anything about. And I do want to toss out and say, because of a path that I've walked myself and continue to walk, we have to make decisions sometimes in our lives that other people do not understand.
Yeah.
They don't know the whole story. They don't know how we feel. And they will come at us sometimes from a place of ignorance, and they will come with criticism, and they will come with judgment and say that we should or should not do this or that or the other. And sometimes they come with vitriol. And that's part of setting boundaries and saying, look, this is my yard and I need to evaluate what's in my yard and I need to make these choices for myself and my family. And the person on the other side of the fence doesn't understand everything. And I appreciate you coming on here and being willing to be open about the reality of what it's like. Not only all the wonderful things you're doing with the patches to try to eliminate as much as you could,
Right.
to try to eliminate all of the things that were happening to your body because you were
Right.
grieving and you were going through all these hard things and your body was breaking down. So you were trying to find a way to deal with all of that because these other things, like what was going on with your husband, I know the patches helped him some, but it's not, this is not going to cure Alzheimer's.
Right. That's
Y-
right.
And so that is something that you have to deal with. And also deciding, and listeners, I want you to hear this too. If you're in a position where you need to make a choice in your life for you, like Darlene is having to make a choice for herself, even if you think, and especially if you think other people are going to judge you and they're going to criticize you and they're going to, try to call you out and say you're bad or you're this. Listen, I've been called all kinds of things. I've been called a bitch. I've been called hateful. I've been called unforgiving. I've been called unkind. I've been called all kinds of things. At the end of the day, you can decide for yourself if you think you are all those things. I determine I am not. But, that doesn't prevent other people from accusing us because they don't know our story. And so if you're in a position like Darlene and you need to set a boundary and you may need to make a decision for yourself, and other people might accuse you of something, saying, "Well, you shouldn't do that. That's not the loving thing to do. You're that's not the thing you should do as a wife or a husband or as a daughter or as a whatever." You make your choice. And like Darlene, you were saying earlier, you have friends and you would seek out wisdom. You have a therapist. And so you were not in a vacuum. You're not making this decision in a vacuum. You sought out wise people and wise counsel, and you explained to them what you were going through. So whatever decision you end up making for you and your husband,
Yeah.
it's the wise choice that you made with the wisdom of others around you who have seen you walk the walk. And if other people say, well, that you should be doing, so what? Let them talk.
Yeah.
Let them talk.
And I feel like I can say to date that I have left no stone unturned, and I have tried as hard as a person can try. Maybe too hard. Maybe that's why it's so hard for me, is because I'm trying to do absolutely everything the best way possible. And the it is almost like not what other people are saying is what I'm saying to myself, that I have to change my own self-talk around it. And my therapist is helping. Don't feel guilty if this is how you feel. Don't feel guilty if you are cringing when he says things that are sort of sexual in nature and you're just like, and I feel bad. Like, he doesn't know. He's been my
Mm.
husband for, we've been together 20 years. And now all of a sudden that's not okay to me. Why is that not okay to me? It's just not okay to me because I'm mom now and you're a child now. And so all of the complexity around this and you want to, the tendency is to judge my own thoughts
Mm.
than my actions in a way that's probably a little too harsh. And so I do have not only a therapist, but friends who are like, no, no, that is very normal. That is very natural. And that is, please be kind and gentle with yourself and whatever you're thinking and feeling. And the other thing is, I haven't had the big cry. Um, and, my therapist asked me that, well, why haven't you had have you gotten to here and then you just haven't? And well, yeah, I've had a lot of getting to here where my, feelings are right about to overflow, but I'm at work or I'm in front of him or you have to almost give yourself space to grieve. And I have lost my husband, right? He's not who he was before, but he's still standing in front of me as a different
Yeah.
person. And so this grief that it's a journey and I'm trying really hard to give myself the space to process it in the middle of it. But that takes time
Mhm.
and it's gonna happen when it's not like you can press a button and go, okay, now you have a 1 hour window. Cry now. This is the time. Like you've got a space to do it. That's just not so easy. And so
Yeah,
anyway, it's a process.
it
But
absolutely
I will
is.
say this, I was trying to figure out where to place it by myself. And I had a social worker come in and I've been touching base with the social worker monthly and they offer a plethora of wisdom. First it was, well, have you thought about a date program? There's one right down the street from you. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. That sounds perfect. Let's take him at 10. Let's pick him up at 4. He's engaging and doing activities and other days. That gave me some space. And then she said, well, do you know there's a service? And they actually go and they are experts at finding places for people,
Mm.
if you want a small home or a big place or whatever. And so I think asking for help through the process, getting these wise people who have done this to provide assistance, that has been huge because I was trying to sort of, well, I'm a smart person. I can figure this out. I can do this on my own. I don't really have but and limitations in that regard. Well, yeah, I do. You have limitations on time and expertise, and there are people out there far smarter than me on these and having the ability to take their counsel and support and wisdom. They'll even go with you
Well,
on your first tour.
you're the emotional burden that you're having to carry as well, because these other people that are helping you, they're not in it. You know,
Right,
you're in
right.
it. So it's like this grief, this loss that you're having to slog through. It's like quicksand. You're having to slog through it. And So trying to make all these decisions while having to
Yeah.
slog through this emotional quicksand is really something I cannot imagine. I really appreciate your willingness to come on and share with my listeners, because there, like we said earlier, there very well may be listeners out there that are going through something very, very similar and really needed to hear you so they don't feel so alone.
Yeah.
So for the listeners that I have that are thinking, I would really like to know more about Darlene Greene and what she has to say and the patch and her experience and her wisdom, where do they go? What can I put in the show notes?
Sure. So the website that is probably the easiest to link to me is I am reverse aging. IAMREVERSEAGING.com. And they can reach out to me. There is a, you know, I'm so and so. I live in such a different place. They can email me. I will respond. I offer a free consultation to your guest, and I can even pull them in with a doctor friend of mine where they can consult with a doctor who has over 350 people patching and has seen just about everything and is even smarter because it's their doctor than I am on these things. But I have uh, a good solid understanding of how to guide people. It's become Oh, a passion, as you can probably sense, right? It's not my day job. It's not, but I love, love, love this so much. The ability to help others. It's feeding my soul and helping me through this tough time. But I also hope people will understand you don't have anything to lose. There's a money back guarantee. Like you really, I mean, there's nothing it won't help. And anybody from, kids to grandparents are able to, including pets, actually. Pets, we have a whole line for animals. There was a dog that was paralyzed this week. My friends shared with me, and they said, sorry, there's nothing we can do. They're not going to walk again. And they started patching, and 3 days later, he's bounding around like a puppy. So,
Okay.
I think we underestimate the power of our bodies to heal ourselves. And we rely on the white coats who've gone to medical school and they're very smart and they're really good if you break a arm and they're really good if you need an emergency, you've had a car accident. But I would say holistically, from a whole wellness perspective, they don't know a lot about nutrition or holistic approaches to healing or even the complexity of the systems of the body.
Yeah, I'm a very holistic believer, and you sound as passionate about this as I'm about boundaries. So I totally
What
I
you mean
see
your
that
boundary?
I see that passion reflected in you that I feel well up inside of me when I see people that are having boundary issues, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got to talk about the boundaries. We've got to talk about it because I can help you, and so and I see that reflected in you. So I see that that's kind of mirroring back and forth between the two of us, that passion. So thank you. Darlene, you have been amazing. Thank you for spending your time and your energy and being willing to be very emotionally transparent and sharing your passion with myself, with my listeners on this day. Thank you very, very much. I'm so grateful.
Well, I'm grateful for you, Gina. I'm really grateful for your podcast. I'm very grateful for your expertise in boundaries. That that has also helped me. Everyone listening needs to go back to your very first podcast and go through the boundary series. Like there's 4 or 5
Yep.
of them.
Yep.
They need to listen to every single one of those right out of the gate because they offer a master class in foundational boundary. And but we really all of us
Mhm.
all of us need to understand our boundaries, regardless of because we're all in relationships, as you pointed
That's
out. Like we're not sitting on an island in the middle of nowhere with nobody around us. We're all in relationships, and I love that you have the ability to make it clear and also make sure people understand this is your responsibility. Like it's not their fault that they're trampling all over your boundaries. It's kind of like your job to set the fences post up and say, no, no, I'm going to say no to that. And I don't have to explain why.
that's it. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Darlene. Thank you
Dana,
so much.
thank you.
Listeners, I know that you have heard so much stuff today that you're thinking, I've got to share this. Oh my gosh. Take this episode, copy and paste the link in text, copy and paste it in email, post it on your favorite social media sites, spread the word, get Darlene's information out there. Let's grow our Phoenix and Flame community so that we can reach out to one another and know that we are not alone. Thank you for spending your day with us. I hope the rest of your day goes fabulously. I'm Dana on Phoenix and Flame.